Hi all, I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum. Today is Friday, June 15th, 2018, and you're watching WGAN-TV live at 5. Our topic today, 360 Tours, what's new since we last visited with the two co-founders. Hey, Ross.
Hi.
Ross, good to see you. Ross Peterson, co-founder of 360 Tours, and Lorenzo.
Hi.
Hey, Lorenzo. Lorenzo Ganji, also co-founder of 360 Tours. So it sounds like you all have some exciting news for us, but before we do that, how about a summary of 360 Tours? Give us the big picture before we get into what's new since we last visited.
Sure. Well, we can. You want to start with a summary? That'd be fine. Sure.
Well, first, I've just landed from Mars. I've heard of 360 Tours, but I don't know anything about it. What is 360 Tours, and how do I use it? When do I use it?
Sure. Yeah, I'll start here, and Lorenzo can jump in. We built 360 Tours to make it easy for people to take 360 panorama images that they can create a number of different ways. You can create one with a 360 camera. You can create one stitching together images from even an iPhone or any sort of smartphone, any camera. You can also create them from drone-based photography, which is one of the more popular ways in which we think 360 Tours can be used. Those images, once created, can be uploaded into our system and then marked up or annotated with markers. They can be put together into tours. They can be combined with 2D images, so an image that isn't built into a panorama. That 2D image can be used to supplement the various 360 images that make up your tour, or it can be used even as a tour, an area map or tour map of that gives you sort of a different angled view of what you might be building. So for instance, like a floor plan or a area guide, if you were looking at maybe even a cartoon map of a big tennis grounds or something, you can take a 2D image and place the same markers on it that you might place on a 360 image. So it's a pretty all-encompassing platform that allows you to build sophisticated tours, but really quickly with anything from a consumer level to professional grade 360 panoramas.
Ross, it's cool to hear you describe that, because I actually think of 360 Tours from a different perspective. I think of it as, imagine that you have a multi-family home community and you're doing 3D tours of 5 different model types, but you kind of want to know where all the different houses are in relationship to each other. And so I think sometimes that's a little bit easier, maybe to begin with an aerial view, or maybe to begin with an area 2-dimensional map of the community, and now start attaching digital assets, whether that's a Matterport 3D tour or a 360 or a video or a 360 video, or text links or links to websites. So it's interesting to hear how you describe it, because I always think of it from kind of this spatial relationship of stuff that's hard to kind of, how do I know the relationship? If you're a photographer and you've taken all these Matterport spaces all over, let's say I'm in Atlanta, all over Atlanta, how do you show all the different places that you've shot, maybe for one client? And maybe that's a real estate agent that has 10 or 15 active listings, and you want to be able to have that agent communicate, here are all my listings. And oh, by the way, here is Piedmont Park, and here's where the Atlanta Zoo is. And so you have some relationship to see not just where that one property is, but its relationship to other properties. Does that sound fair?
Well, I think that's the coolest part about it, is that it kind of can be used for whatever it is that you want to use it for. That's a great idea. We have a client that's working with, so we're more of a business to business platform in many cases, because we're selling our services to often real estate photographers, 360 photographers, other photographers that are then selling it to their clients. So, our pro plan allows you to, our first plan allows you to put your branding on it. And then our pro plan allows you to override your own branding with your client's branding. So you can put, you could put Realtor X, you can put their logo up, and they can then take ownership over a particular tour or panorama, which in the case of someone here in our town in Missoula, they're basically going to take ownership over a neighborhood. And then they can say, I've sold this house, I've sold this house, I've sold this house. This one's on the market, this one's coming up soon or whatever. So that's one, just like you described, that's one way you could use 360 tours.
Yeah, I'm going to digress for a moment because I know that you're the founder of WP 3D Models WordPress plugin, and which I think of as a Swiss Army knife that does 101 things. And so sometimes this amazing tool, which I think many of us in the We Get Around Network Forum community are familiar with and actually use, we go, oh, there are so many things I can do within this tool. And I think in a similar fashion with 360 tours, maybe why I might even struggle with describing it is because there's so many things that you can do with it. Where do you begin in terms of how you describe to a photographer how you might use this platform?
Yeah, I think that's right. And some of the features we'll talk about today kind of expand upon that and make it even more, I think, attractive for a photographer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so even before I even start maybe asking Lorenzo a little bit about some of these what's new features, I think it's helpful for our viewers, for WGAN TV viewers, to know that we have done two other shows on 360 tours. So there's an episode for 360 tours for newbies. That's about when you launched, I wanted to say, in the fall of 2017. Mm-hmm. And it was, here's the introduction to 360 tours. And then shortly after that, we did an update because I know you had some really cool new features that you introduced. So we're going to assume that those are really those that are really interested in 360 tours to know you can go back and watch an entire episode on the basics of 360 tours. You can go back and watch some of the cool new features. And then today, Friday, June 15th, 2018, we'll go through even what's new since we visited last.
Yeah.
So Lorenzo, what's new since we visited last?
Well, we've got a couple new features. We have an Apex domain feature. We've added Google Analytics. We've also added a couple new features to our marker tooltips. And lastly, we've made some improvements on how our navigation.
Oh, did I lose you guys?
And panoramas.
Yeah, he dropped out there for a second. Tell you what, how about we start with the Google Analytics integration and demo? That sounds like a whole topic in itself.
Sure.
Yeah, so what we did was we added a convenient way of adding your Google Analytics key to your 360 Tours account, and that will enable you to track all the...
Ross, we're having some problems with Lorenzo's connection. Is that something you can...
Panoramas and 2D photos that you make and individual...
Yeah, we're just having some technical problems. Hey, Lorenzo, how about we let Ross pick it up and if you can?
Sure. Yeah, it just kicks off every once in a while. It just freezes a little bit as far as that must be the video on your end. But sure. Yeah. So as far as analytics goes, yeah, we have now you can pick if you pick a new or UA code for each property if you wanted to for each tour, or you can put one in as the photographer and then track all of these and then share the data with your client. It's pretty versatile, really. And we've added a lot of marker events, so you can see when people are clicking on specific markers, so you can get really granular information back from Google Analytics.
And what's an example of how a photographer might use that who is offering 360 Tours as a reseller?
Let's see. And I'm just checking it. Can you hear us okay, Lorenzo? Are you?
You're kind of fading in and out.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe there's a potentially a different.
Not sure, I think it's my connection.
Yeah, maybe there's if you felt like you wanted to try a different network or something, maybe
Yeah. Lorenzo, how about dropping off and dialing back in and see if that'll fix it?
Okay, let me try that.
Okay.
But to answer your question, Dan, I think, to be honest, I think people are coming up with those reasons for their own uses. I mean, I could see it being valuable so that you as the account owner for 360 Tours could put one code in, and then you could start to build filters on the back end of Google Analytics, and then share that data as part of a package you share with your clients, or part of an upsell. You can build those reports to send out even automatically on a weekly basis or daily basis. Say this particular tour is seeing this kind of traffic. Maybe you just want to see how many people actually click on a specific marker. Maybe there's something you're trying to sell. I mean, there's e-commerce opportunities with these markers. So it could be anything. Maybe you want to just see how long someone is spending on a tour in general, or compare one tour to another, how one is performing compared to the other.
So Ross, I know you used the word marker. How about defining that for us? Because I think it has multiple uses.
Sure. Yeah. So the markers in our tours are essentially what, if you're familiar with Matterport, it would be like the Matter tag. It would be a pin of sorts placed somewhere in the panorama that you can attach, in your words, a digital asset to. You can make these open videos. You can make them open a way to another website. You can make them navigate to another 360 panorama inside of a tour. You can open a 2D image. So in our vocabulary with 360 Tours, you can assemble a number of panoramas and 2D images into what we call a tour. And once you've done that, you'll get essentially a tray across the bottom with different thumbnails from the various assets that are stored within 360 Tours. Those are the panoramas and 2D images. The other assets, things that you might be linking away to or embedding into, those don't appear in the bottom tray, but they do appear as markers on the side tray. And those markers can be, like I said, anything really that's embeddable can be put in there. It can also just be, that's kind of one of the new features, which might be a good segue. One of the things that we built recently, we felt like we were seeing a lot of people building city tours, so your own, you just want the downtown area of your particular hometown, and maybe you want to go ahead and promote a few different businesses. Maybe you've done a Matterport scan of several different businesses. You want to, like we talked about earlier, you want to pin each one of those businesses onto this sort of global map or this global panorama. And maybe you want some other landmarks in there, but maybe those landmarks aren't things that need to actually have any more content, right? Maybe it's just a street. Maybe it's just a highway just to orient someone, or maybe it's, those are the things that jump out for me. Or maybe you need something to be seen all the time. Like, it's really important that you have a tooltip always be present. So we added a couple options for that. Basically, we call it a do nothing marker type. So clicking on these new markers doesn't do anything. It can be just there to mark up the image, to put in something like a street number or any sort of place mark that just doesn't need an interaction. And then you can choose whether you want that to have the tooltip information, the text that describes it, be always present or present when you hover. So it really seems like it covers a lot of the bases of things we saw some of our customers using and using the tools we already had, but it seemed cumbersome. So this solves that.
Cool. Lorenzo, did you want to add anything about info only or do nothing markers, or did you all want to demo this? Or
Yeah, we can show you a demo. Why don't we discuss our last feature, and then we can maybe show you a tour that uses all of that together. Or did you discuss the Apex domains yet, Ross? No,
I figured we could come into that later or at the end here.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, before, if people aren't familiar, 360 Tours has a custom domain feature, and we extended that with something that we call Apex domains. So it's good to have an understanding of custom domains first. basically on our top tier plan, the one that is available through the WGAN network, you can point your own domains to the 360 tour servers, and then you can use those domains to load any of your tours, panoramas, or 2D photos. So for instance, you might, if you were so lucky as to own dan.com, right, you could build out
I do own smigrod.com.
well, there you go. So you would have the ability, or have the ability rather, to point smigrod.com to 360 tours, or any subdomain of smigrod.com. For instance, you could have something like 360.smigrod.com or virtualtours.smigrod.com. And then you can use that domain to look at any of the tours that you've built. So you take what they call the route part of the URL. If you were to look at any of your 360 or your current tours or panoramas, all of the stuff that comes after the domain, you could replace the my.360 tours with Smigrod or 360.smigrod or whatever you wanted, and then go to that resource and it would load, right? And this was really handy because people, a lot of the time, they want to make a bunch of tours for, say, if you're a real estate agent, you might buy the domain that corresponds to the address of a property or something. And so you want to be able to send somebody to 123.beautifulhouselane.com. The problem is you would have all of this stuff that came after the .com, right? In custom domains. So that's the downfall of doing it that way. So we introduced something called the Apex domain feature. And what that does is allow you to assign any one of your tours, panoramas, or 2D photos directly to a domain. So you could go out and register 123
123 Main Street.
123 Main Street, for example, at GoDaddy or whatever registrar, domain registrar you want to use. And then you can assign that domain specifically to a tour panorama inside a 360 tour. So when people go to 123mainstreet.com, they see that tour. And there's nothing else in the domain. So you can put it on a business card. You can put it in, marketing emails, wherever you want to use that, you can. And now it's very simple and clean and much easier to use. And I think a lot more intuitive too. People tend to think about things in that way.
Okay, so it looks like Ross is going to give us a demo of that.
Well, yeah, I thought I would just. So I was just going to get rid of this. Okay, so in this, so exactly what Lorenzo's talking about, we've registered this domain, and I always feel like I'm going to mispronounce it, but it's dunstaffnagecastle.com. This is a castle in Scotland, and you can see up here in the URL, it's just that URL. I mean, I'll reload it, but that's it. So you can now assign as many domains as you want. Based on your account level, you can add domains to 360 and then assign them directly to specific. This goes for tours, panoramas, or even 2D images.
So let's go a little bit slower for me, Ross. You give me too much credit here. I am confused. So I understand the domain that you bought for the name of this castle. So what would be an example of an Apex implementation?
That is the Apex. Let me show you the alternative.
Okay.
It would be here. So this is the original. This would be the 360 tours domain here.
That's
right? That's the longer.
Yes, but that's if you didn't customize it.
Right. And then if, let's say that you decided, okay, one of the things I want to do with 360 tours is I want everything I create to be under, so let's say you now register your own domain name because you want it to be essentially your white label domain for everything that you're going to build with 360 tours. You could buy a domain like My Special Tours. You could have it be that this could be your domain name, Special Tours, and you could assign this. I mean, obviously this isn't accurate, right? But you could make this, you could assign special.tours to 360 tours, and you could have everything that's in your account served off of special.tours, but with this portion. And this is what Lorenzo was talking about. This is the route to that specific
resource
content resource in our inside of our, platform. The difference between that and what we're talking about now is you can now say, you know what, and this wouldn't be the case for say special.tours. That's more of like if you're our customer and you're wanting to do everything under one brand, that's special tours. But now you've got a customer that comes along, this castle, for instance, and they say, I really like what you're doing, but I need it to be served off of my domain, dunstaffnagecastle.com. Now you can go buy that domain and then assign it, and you get nothing else behind it. There's no resource.
Okay. Fantastic. That I get. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so maybe if you can in your screen share, if you can show them how you assign this in the editor, it might make a little bit more sense.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Even before you get there, I just want to ask one more question while we're on this particular screen. Can I put anything that's /.com/ and then I have other assets?
No, not in this case. This is like you decide. I mean, I don't see why you would potentially want to, in the sense that if you're going to the effort of assigning a domain name to a specific resource like this, it might be like mytowntour.com. And now it goes.
Let me ask it in a different way. So let's say this castle actually has, because this is right now it's assigned, I guess, to a 360.
It's assigned to a tour.
It's assigned to a tour. Okay,
which means that you can navigate to these other. You can switch to the other parts of the tour. Does that make sense? You can move around the various 360s that have been assigned to this tour.
And that's what I'm trying to understand. What's changing at the top is right now there's got some things to the right of the .com that I don't understand.
Yeah, so you could use, once it's been assigned to this domain, you could link into a specific spot of the tour, certainly. But I guess maybe I misunderstood. I was assuming that you were talking about wanting to say something like make up your own, go to / like tower or something.
Well, I don't know. I'm just asking because I have this kind of vision that if this happened to be an aerial 360 and I wanted to bring people into the aerial from 3 different places, what are the 2 other ones named?
In those cases, you would just navigate to the other place in the aerial, and then it would be a longer URL. Customizing the route to that particular another element inside a tour isn't a feature that we've yet implemented. You would pick the initial load, and that comes up under the main, what we're calling Apex domain, and then you can navigate around the aerial from there, or around this tour, around wherever.
Okay, so I think part of what's new here for me is that I've been operating with a subdomain, something that's to the left of that. Yeah,
you've been operating. Maybe what Lorenzo was talking about before would help. So looking at the back side of 360 tours, let me pull this up.
Okay.
So here is this tour. Here's this castle. Right? And we've got inside here, now we've got this new tool, Apex domain. And over here, there's, you can say none, 360.ironlasso, or dunstaffnagecastle.com. These are the domains that have been added. So over here, custom domain, a domain can be alone, which is technically the Apex domain, something without a subdomain, or it can be a subdomain, in this case 360.ironlasso.com.
I probably am making a mess of this because I'm not I'm geeky, but I'm not technical. So so the second one is literally what it's called an Apex domain, and it means I think of it as the primary domain that I'd give out publicly.
Good term for it, sure.
I don't know. And then that number 1 that's there, where it has 360 . I think of the 360 being the subdomain of the ironlasso.com, where the ironlasso.com is the Apex portion.
Yep. That's a fine way to put it. Yep.
Okay.
The difference here is that if you're somebody who's already established as a photographer, you already have a domain name and it's already pointing to your website, you may just want to add on 360 Tours services under your banner or your umbrella, but you don't want your primary domain name to go to our service. So in that scenario, you'd rather set up a subdomain, in this case 360.yourdomain.com, or whatever. You can pick whatever you want it to be, .yourdomain.com.
Okay.
And then all of the content you create within our platform can be served off of that domain. That was the first example that I was sharing.
Yeah, I think that helps give me clarity, because as a photographer that has an ongoing business with an ongoing domain, I don't necessarily want to set up a separate domain. And maybe
Right.
I'm way confusing this, because I do want all the SEO to go to my photographer business.
Totally.
So
No,
that I'm going to use in this example number one,
Yep.
where if my business was named ironlasso.com, I
Yep.
can create anything I want to the left of the period.
Yep.
And in this case, you happen to name it 360.
Yep,
That could
right.
be gallery, that could be tour, that could be 3D tour. It could be whatever somebody wanted to put to the left. And I think that's number one is probably a good example for a service business. And then maybe example number two is if you're doing this for a specific client, and that client maybe happens to own a
Scottish Castle.
Oh, I just don't like that Scottish castle because I can't pronounce that. So I'm going to make up a property. I have the
DowntownAtlantaTours.com. DowntownAtlantaTour.com.
I love that. So
Yeah.
in that case, I might be a photographer that says, I want to go set up an entire business where every digital asset I've ever taken, I'm going to put on a map of Atlanta, and I'm going to set up a separate domain for that.
Yep.
And that it's not that far of a stretch, because you might say, hey, maybe I live in a beach community, a resort area, a historic district. And I think the example of number two, I think historic, is really a good example. If you're in the historic area of Dahlonega, Georgia, and you want to be the photographer that maps the world of historic Dahlonega, Georgia, then that could be historicdahloneggeorgia.com. And every digital asset that you end up putting on there is going to be yours. And hopefully you're going to get clients that are going to pay you for that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But these aren't mutually exclusive, and that's the part to remember. So you can be doing this, you can be selling all of these, under your banner, and then you decide, I'd like to open up this new service where I'm gonna build out one of my tours, and I'm gonna sell advertising on it for these downtown businesses, and I'm gonna put this all under its own domain name. Now you can do that. And it's not related to your business any longer in the domain name in any way, at least. So we feel like it offers a lot more versatility, and we feel like it offers a lot more revenue opportunities for photographers that their clients, as much as the photographer themselves would like white labelability and removing the 360 Tours piece, their clients also want the same thing. Perhaps, and now they can do that for them. They can buy a custom domain that removes the photographer's brand for a price to do that.
Yeah, I love it. I apologize for being so confused about trying to understand that.
No, it is confusing. And for Lorenzo and I trying to come up with a way to name this and explain it, it requires some education about what these terms mean and what you can do with them. So it's good we're talking about it.
Okay. But I think that also speaks to your tool is being a Swiss Army knife. Sometimes when things can do so many different things, it can be hard to explain some of the subtleties of features, but I get it. I think I overstood. Our audience gets it now too. Could you just go back to the place where now that you've imported that custom domain 205, of where you actually made a choice of assigning it to a particular tour? So
that's right. So here, So the apex domain, and technically apex domain just means the domain without any subdomain in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this could also be, you could put a www in front of this, but there's really no reason you'd want to. But so you first add your domain, inside of your account. Down here, custom domains. It's just entering it and adding it. And then once it's been entered, you can assign it here. But it's important to note that there's a couple steps that are just simply critical steps to get this sort of functionality. You need to use, you have to adjust your DNS. And this, it's just a technical piece that one needs to learn in order to use these sorts of things, regardless of platform. So we really feel like the services offered by Cloudflare are really valuable. They're free, and they're just really sophisticated. In addition, they offer, and this is a really pretty critical element, they offer the ability to offer HTTPS, or a secure socket layer, SSL, so a secure certificate that it's free. And so you would move your domain name, you would update your name server, so you would use Cloudflare. Again, it's free. And then once that's moved over to Cloudflare, usually happens pretty quickly, using Cloudflare's tools, which we've well documented in our documentation at 360 Tours, you would adjust your CNAME values to point to 360 Tours. Again, totally documented in on our website. But when you've done so, then you're going to automatically get a free SSL certificate. And this is critical at this point because browsers like Chrome are updating themselves regularly. And pretty soon we aren't going to, and this is definitely the case, if you're serving content off of a non-secure domain and trying to embed it inside of a secure page. So if your client has a website served over HTTPS and your content is not, it won't display. And this is just a new thing that's starting to happen. And our solution that's includes the Apex domain gets around all this and works really well using Cloudflare as your DNS provider.
So is a DNS? So I ordered websites, domains through GoDaddy. Is Cloudflare the same as a GoDaddy?
No, it's different. GoDaddy offers two services. They offer lots of services, but in this scenario, they offer two things. They offer domain registration, and they also offer DNS services. GoDaddy does not give you a free SSL certificate, nor do they allow for the type of DNS. It's called CNAME flattening. It's just a technical term that we go through in our documentation, but they don't offer that like Cloudflare does. So you would still buy your domain name from GoDaddy, and then instead of using GoDaddy's name servers, which are assigned by default, you would go to Cloudflare, create your free account, add that domain name. Cloudflare will say, here's your new name servers. You enter those into GoDaddy and typically wait even just as little as an hour or less, or in some rare cases it can take 24 hours. But once once the internet has updated so that your name servers are now pointing to Cloudflare, then all of the rest of the adjustments happen nearly immediately and can happen, and all of our documentation that points you to 360 Tours would happen at Cloudflare. You'll still pay your annual fee to own the domain name or essentially lease a domain name from GoDaddy, but the rest of your DNS management would now happen at Cloudflare.
And there's no charge for Cloudflare?
No charge.
Should I ask why it's free or how it's free?
You'd have to ask them, but they have that's part of their server. They have a free account that does offer these critical pieces, and millions and millions of people use them for DNS.
Okay. Can you spell the website for us?
Sure. I'll just type it in here. Cloudflare.
CLOUDFLARE.com.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, they got pricing for something, so there's something that they
do.
They sell. Okay,
they certainly do, but their free version covers everything you'll need to do, at least in the case of 360 Tours.
Fantastic. And then I know you mentioned your documentation on your site. Why don't you take us to your website and then spell that out for us so we can see where we find that documentation?
Yeah, we have a number of different documentations. This we consider all to be part of our white label branding. We offer the custom Apex domains documentation, adding custom domains, We also talk about using what it takes to use the root or naked custom domain with Cloudflare. There's a lot of this documentation relates to Cloudflare, especially this using SSL with custom domains. So we walk you through everything inside the Cloudflare settings and what you'd need to do.
Okay, terrific. So I think at the big picture level, if you could just take us back to your homepage, ThreeSixty.tours, 360.tours, and there's a tab off to the right that says documentation. So that's how we found that.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you wanted to tell us about custom Apex domains?
I've been chatting my brains out here. Lorenzo, do you have any other thoughts of anything that we've missed there?
You want to take us off screen sharing, Ross?
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I think the only thing maybe that we could reiterate was the scenario that Dan was wondering about, to explain the difference between a custom domain and an Apex domain. And I think the analogy that you gave of a photography business was pretty accurate. If you were a photographer, and you had the domain smigrod.com and you wanted to display any one of your tours or panoramas or anything that you make in 360 tours with that domain, you could do that. You would just have the routing information after the domain would follow each one. But you could go to anything and replace anything that you had made and replace the my.360 tours with your own domain. And custom domains would allow that, right? The big difference with the Apex domains is then if you had a client that you had built out a custom tour for and they wanted their very own domain name, like for a real estate project or whatever else, then you can do that, but it has a one-to-one relationship. It only that Apex or naked or root domain that however you want to refer to it only goes to a single 360 tour resource.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how members of the We Get Around Network Forum community use that feature. Me personally, I just keep thinking, I live in a historic town. I live at the beach. I live at a resort area. I live at a vacation place. I live at some geography that I want to pull all the digital assets together. And that seems like it would be perfect for I guess this custom domain, or what you call custom Apex domain.
Especially because inside of 360 Tours, you can put any other kind of content you want, right? You can put a Matterport tour, you can put anything else into and embedded in, and specifically where that element is in the bigger picture, as you've noted. So you can get you have a really affordable way now of picking a domain name that you can brand, pointing it to a content, and then having lots of other stuff underneath it. Stuff is not the best word, but now you have ownership over that domain and you can control it as the.
I think the correct expression is digital stuff.
Digital stuff. That's right. Digital stuff. But yeah, instead of like each of these elements, picking a domain name for each one, like a single property page for each thing. Now you could say, well, rather than do that, in this case, it makes more sense to have a high level domain that's covering this whole historic district. And then you can point to each one of those things can be embedded within it. So we think it has great value. Yeah.
I think so too. And please don't go register historicdolonica.com, because I want to go do that. What a great idea. I'm gonna go do all the restaurants, all the gift shops, all the historic sites, and I'm gonna go make a lot of money renting out space on my 360 tour using a custom Apex domain.
Well, and especially downtown associations have a lot of interest in this because it's perfect, right? They already have relationships with all the restaurants and businesses in a specific area. But it is hard for a visitor who comes to a new town to say, well, I want to go out to eat now. Where is that one? If you could say, well, here, hit this domain and you'll see everything will pop up, and you can, you are here sort of in the digital world. So.
Mm-hmm. How does this work on mobile? I'm out looking for a restaurant, and you sent me to historicdolonica.com. Can I easily see all the different digital stuff that's on my 360 tour?
Yeah, just the same as it is on the desktop, just smaller. Yep.
Okay, terrific.
Optimized even. We
optimized.
We do a series of optimizations to make the images a little bit smaller, so they load a little bit faster, and we detect if it's a mobile browser that's requesting the resource. So.
Terrific. So we've talked about 2 new features so far, or actually 3: Google Analytics integration, the do nothing markers, the custom Apex domains. What else you got? What else is new since we visited last?
I think the last thing that we have to offer is, it's not a huge feature release, but we were pretty proud of it. The header and footer sections now of panoramas and tours will auto hide as you rotate, and we thought that it gave the tours and panos a much cleaner look, because really we want the focus to be on the photography and the actual 360 itself, and not so much all of the markup around it. So as you're moving around, we take away the header and we take away the footer, and then after a second it pops back up after someone stops to focus on a specific part.
So back to this, I can share the screen again if you'd like.
Sure, that'd be great.
So back here to, are we seeing?
Yep.
Oops, I don't want to. I guess that's the whole screen.
Yeah, if you want to take it off sharing, come back on, just select that screen.
Just that screen.
Yeah.
All right. We just want this one, right? Does that look
Coming
right?
up. Yep, got it.
Okay. So again, let's make that a little smaller. So yeah, do you see how everything is, as I start to interact with it, everything goes away so that we can see. And then when I stop, you're going to see the header and branding come back in. So again, it's a seemingly small polish, but it's we feel like it really opens your eyes, so to speak, to what's going on more so than when it's covered up with the branding.
Well, my sense is that just as you've done with WP3D models, WordPress plugin, where you just keep making it better. For the years that you've been working on it, it looks like you're adding polish to 360 tours and just making it better and incremental better. Yeah,
and there's certainly people have been great about sharing their ideas for it, and we have a great list of things that we can be working on, and we're assessing those regularly. And we have some exciting stuff that we're starting to work on now too, that we'll be happy to share with you once it's ready.
Cool. Tool tips. What?
Oh, the tool tips. You can see it in the example we just looked at. We have a control now to display a tool tip for a given marker all the time or only on hover. And
let me show. I've got another one here too.
Okay. Incidentally, while Ross is setting up, if you go to the WeGetAroundNetworkForum.com, WeGetAroundNetworkForum.com, and you search for 360 tours, Ross has been publishing many examples in the We Get Around, embedding them in the We Get Around Network Forum. So if you want to look at them and have a discussion, you can. If you want to take a look at 360.tours directly, you can do that as well. So this is where I was looking for that tool tip.
Yeah, so this was taken from this winter, so it would be a prettier photo right now. But here are a bunch of various points of interest, but none of them have specific video or embeds or anything that might indicate that we want to open a modal window up and show more content. So instead, just hovering on them gives you an idea gives you just a little bit more. Just little notes that you can share in various places around.
Yeah. That's great. And I would imagine that this is one of those things where you create these different tools, and what your vision for how they might be used is one thing, and then there may be 100 other ways that people look at that and go, oh, this is how I can use that in my world.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so I know we have at least one member in the virtual studio audience. I'm going to ask them to come in for questions here in a moment. Before we do, and at the risk of oversimplifying on pricing, I think I want to say 3 things. There's a free tier for 360 tours, so if you just want to try it and play with it, there's a forever free tier. Second, there are some tiers that do cost some money on a subscription basis. And third, if you're a We Get Around Network standard or premium member, you get the free use of 360 tours, the top tier that includes 5 free, the use of 5 domains or subdomains. Is that
Yep.
essentially
Five custom domains. Yep.
if you wanted to have 5 custom Apex domains as part of your account, that's included in the top of the line 360 tours subscription, and is for all We Get Around Network standard and premium members, you get the free use of the top of the line 360 tours.
That's right. Yeah.
Custom domain 5 plan.
Yes.
That's right. Yep.
And all of our plans don't have any limit on resource usage. You can view tours and panels as much as you'd like, and you can ultimately create as many as you would like to, even on our free plan. We just limit the number that you can make per time period. So you can only make a few panos and tours per week at the lowest level. The highest level, there's no restrictions for that.
Terrific. And hey, Ross from Chicago. Let me unmute you. I'm so sorry. Okay, Ross, can you hear us now in Chicago?
Yeah, I'm here.
Maybe a little bit confusing because we have 2 Rosses. Ross in Chicago. How about introducing yourself? Tell us your name and your company name and where you're located.
My name is Ross Sanzucci. Company I have is 3D Roomscapes. I'm in Grays Lake, Illinois, which is the near the Wisconsin border. And I've been doing this with 360 Tours for the last couple of months now with a project for a whole village that I set up with them. We did a 360 panorama of the downtown village center that they have, and got it from satellite panorama from about 600 feet up, and it shows the entire business district that they want to promote. And then we're selling assets, as you showed, to the different merchants. And right now we're just going through all the village properties, the fire station, the youth center, awesome, the libraries, and we're doing 360 tours and drone videos of all those and highlighting them on the map, and then we're going to sell space on the map to all the merchants in the town. So
great.
Tell us more. I've been talking about a hypothetical for historic Dahlonega.com, but you're actually doing it. So tell us more about your project, Ross, that you're using 360 Tours is the platform for this.
Well, that's basically it. I mean, we approached them with the idea, and it just happened to be the village manager and the Chamber of Commerce were working on a project to start marketing this specific area of their community. They call it the village center. I just happened to walk in at the right time with this idea, and because I had gone into town and scanned a couple of local businesses that I knew were popular, a local restaurant and a sports medicine location. And I showed it to the village manager and the Chamber of Commerce president, and they thought it was a great idea. So we just started going from there, and we got a bunch of drone video done and put them together with the Matterport tours of the properties that we did. And we got their own custom domain, and we actually created our own website because they wanted a static front page, which was a picture of the 360 tour map that we were creating. And then when they click on that, it opened up into the 360 tour with their custom domain. And so we've been awesome doing all that. I have a couple requests, but I mean, I'm sure you hear a million.
Before you request, because I'm just fascinated that you're actually doing this, Ross. So stay with me here on this. So I would imagine you did not need to go see the local town elders, mayor, head of, etc., but you chose to do so. Did you have an ask for them of did you want money? Did you want help?
Actually, this is actually, I'm giving them a percentage of all the sales, of 10% of all the sales. And
so you've motivated the town team to help encourage local businesses to get on the map.
Exactly. So they're sending out letters, they're sending out emails, you know, letting them know what's coming. We just had their website go live today. So now is when we're going to start promoting it to all the different merchants. I have a sales rep that goes out and they give us a list of everybody that's in this area, this village center area. And they wrote everybody a letter and they're promoting it. They're putting it on their links to all their websites, which they have multiple websites. So, and they're using it as a promotional tool for just like what you've talked about.
Great.
So who creates, excuse me, who creates the content? Matterport, aerial, photos?
I'm doing it right now.
Way to go, Ross.
You know, I'm looking for, and this is, and we're charging, you know, a fee to go in and to the merchants and actually do the Matterport and the drone, if they, whatever they want. We've got different packages. But then there's a monthly fee to be on the map, which is, you know, a set fee based on how long they want to be on it. And and you know, I'm looking for the reoccurring revenue. You know, I tell my sales guy, the number I'm looking for is a small number that they're going to pay monthly. I want as many people paying that. So if I have to, you know, negotiate down doing a Matterport or whatever, I mean, I'll do it for $50, but I want them to pay that monthly fee.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Is it too soon to share your the website for this?
It's no, I can share it. I just got the website. Hold on, I gotta.
Okay. You mind if I call up the screen and we share it?
No, go ahead. It's GraysLakeVillageCenter.com. GRAYSLAKE, Grays Lake Village Center.
ER?
CENTER, VillageCenter.com.
Okay. Bear with me one sec. This is cool. Bear with me. And Ross, thank you for Ross in Chicago, near Chicago. Thank you for your patience here, because I just we've been talking literally about what you've been described, what you're doing, and so I just think this would be a great thing for us to go off and take a look at. So this is the landing page for Grays Lake Village Center. Again, that website, Grays Lake Village Center. And then I would imagine I could click on this.
Correct.
And we see Grays Lake Village Center. Look at this. Isn't this really exciting?
So
Looks great, Ross.
I have a question. I saw on you were just showing us something that had a red line drawn around like an area.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah, that last example. Yeah.
And they wanted something similar done with this. I couldn't figure out how to do it, so I put these red dots around there. If you look at
Sure.
showing the area that is their village center. How do I make that a solid line like you did?
So there's basically at this moment only one way to do it, and it would be to take the image that you already are using, the 360 pano, and bring it into something like Photoshop and manually draw it around. That example that we're showing, that's what was done there. It's in the image. And it's easy to do, especially in the new version of Photoshop, where you can move the panorama around and adjust. It's really easy to draw on top of it. That's one way. And that's really kind of the best way to do it right now. There are opportunities that we're exploring or we'll look into about potentially building in tools that could do that. But at the moment, that's the way.
So I see you're clicking on stuff here, Dan. Those drones up above. We're in the process of doing an overall video of the business district of the village center district. And that will be attached to all those drones then, so they can see it, if they want an overall view of everything from the drones perspective.
Great. Thank you for letting us look at this, even while it's really under development to some extent. I imagine what you were asking Ross about, you presently put red dots, I would imagine, to define.
That's the boundaries of their village center.
And that's what you'd like to do, what we saw Ross,
Right, with a solid red line.
solid
Right.
red line.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would be pretty easy for you to do, and even easy for you to do, and then just replace it right in here. All the pins will stay in the same place.
Yeah, I love this. So imagine every digital asset here is monthly recurring revenue or annual recurring revenue that Ross over time is just collecting however you're collecting your money. And I want to say you've completely made your competitors irrelevant in this historic district. There's nobody that's going to compete with you, because if they want to be on the map, you need to create the content. Is that right?
Correct.
Yep.
Well, actually, I am offering them to be on the map if I don't. In other words, they may already have a 360 tour. They may already have a drone video. They may already have a little commercial website that they want to put on. I'll put that on there for them. I have a fee to set it all up and create a page for them, and then I'll link it to the map. And it's, you know, a small fee, and then the monthly fee, just like everybody else. If you want to, you know, because if you want to be promoted on the map. So
Yeah.
they don't have to hire me to do anything other than put them on the map.
Yeah, even frankly, even better. It sounds like you'd be thrilled if someone else was shooting all the photos, videos,
You know,
Matterport spaces. You're happy to do that, but if somebody else was shooting it, you're really into it for the monthly recurring revenue anyway.
exactly.
Yeah. All right.
And
Fantastic.
you know, and if this works, we plan on rolling this out to the other communities in the area. So
This is awesome. Do you have other questions for Ross and Lorenzo?
well, I know this one. I've created tons of those little markers, probably 30 of them, and I've created a new one for each business that comes on, because it just has their name on it. And I know that probably I shouldn't have started it that way, but I did, and that's what they wanted. So now I'm creating all of these little markers. I wish I had a folder to put them all in, because there's going to be hundreds of them, or a folder for each different community, where I don't have to have a separate account, but I can have a folder that says this one being Grays Lake, and then I have a folder, when I click on it, opens up all the assets for Libertyville, the next community, or whatever the communities are. That's something that would really help me in this whole project going forward.
So some means of categorizing your custom icons.
The custom icons, exactly, and actually the whole tour, the whole project. This project being the village of Grays Lake. My next project will be the village of whatever.
Yeah.
And if I could, right now you seem to have to combine everything, and you have to keep looking for the different, or if I could have a separate home page for each. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but
No, it makes sense. You want some sort of almost like an icon tag or something that categorizes it to a given tour or panorama or something, and then you can just select from the icons that you've tagged to that specific tour, if that makes sense.
right.
Some way to, I guess, just manage when you get into multiple, even 100 or something, you know, some way to manage it.
Right, exactly. And this one, they have businesses that are outside of this village center. This is a strange community. So, but they didn't want to include them, even though you can see them on the main panorama, they didn't want to include them if they weren't inside the red dots. So I had to create a second page, which is amazing merchants outside of, also in Grays Lake. And that's another link. We had to design the whole webpage because they didn't want that to be too prominent. It was very political. So.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm making a note here.
Around with that.
I want to flip the questions here. Normally we'd have the studio audience, I think, ask the panelists questions, but I think Ross, Lorenzo, you have this like amazing person in Ross who's like living your vision. What kind of questions do you have for him?
Yeah, so my questions are, well, one, it seems to be, and we've heard this before, that people want to have some sort of recurring revenue. And a big question of mine is are our clients happy to do that outside of 360 tours, or would it be something that they would want included in 360 tours. In other words, if we built some means for you to charge people who were included inside of, say, a tour or something, if that would be beneficial, or if it's would just be wasted work.
I think it would be definitely beneficial, because right now I have to create a whole other system just to collect the money.
Yeah. So if there was some way,
Dan's familiar with that, but you know, it's if it were built in, you probably have a better idea, Dan.
Me, if I personally was doing it, because I'm not a technical person, I use the combination of and I should thank you, Ross, because I know you're a We Get Around Network standard member, and you actually get the free use of 360 tours, and we send you we charge you automatically every month using Moonclerk, MOONCLERK.com, sitting on top of Stripe, which actually collects the money. For a non-programming person, I'm a non-programming person, Moonclerk lets me interact with Stripe so that I can create any plan, any amount. Do I want an amount charged up front? Is there a monthly recurring revenue? Is it quarterly recurring? Does the first bill show up on the first day? Does it show up on the first of the month? So Moonclerk lets a non-technical person easily, quickly, and seamlessly create plans and amounts for monthly recurring revenue. That's personally how I would do it. And it automatically charges your credit card. And then recently, we're not presently doing it, but if you wanted to give people, let it charge automatically through ACH to charge directly to their bank account, you could literally do that through Moonclerk now.
Yeah, that would be a great solution for a manual approach, which is, I'm sure, something you're doing, Ross, or something along those lines, where you're managing these payments in some other capacity. I think what Lorenzo was asking is, would it be worth, is it something worth exploring to potentially build that into 360 tours, where somebody could, we're just spitballing here, but they could add themselves or request to be added, and if they were, then some of that payment processing could be built in or something. I think
it would be definitely beneficial, at least for the way I'm using the platform.
I wonder though, because I would imagine, Ross, that you may be charging different. You want to have the ability to charge different merchants different amounts. For example, you might charge nonprofit galleries one price. You might charge restaurants another price, and you might have someone that has a video versus a Matterport space versus photos, and you may have different things that you charge a different amount based on the digital assets or how many digital assets that you include. So I personally, I just wonder in Ross and Lorenzo's behalf that I'm not sure that you could capture all the different permutations of how somebody might do this.
But if you could, it would be great.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, Dan.
Yeah.
I think you're right. There's a lot of different things you're going to charge.
Yeah.
And Ross, are you the only one adding content to these tours?
Right now.
Okay. Yeah.
This is my guinea pig.
Yeah. Lorenzo, were you thinking about a way to in this particular scenario, other people, if I was doing it, I don't think I'd want other people adding digital content. I'd want to be in control of what got on the map rather than.
I'm thinking of it in terms of Ross's position and wanting to make this passive income off of this work, and these businesses being willing to, in the community, being willing to pay for this to be included in almost this like network or however you want to use it. It's basically, he's passing on the subscription service to them. And it's always nice to be able to do that in one place, right? Like to just go in and say like, okay, I've built out this tour and 360 tours. And now I'm going to go around the community. I'm going to knock on some doors and say, hey, would you like to be included? You would? Okay, well, I'm going to sign you up, and the membership for you however, whatever you set it at. Maybe you said you have a five-tier plan or a 10-tier plan or a 2-tier plan. I don't know. But then that's all black box behind 360 tours, and Ross can just concentrate on adding people and not the billing and the maintenance of having people being created.
Yeah.
It's interesting. All right. So at least that's a good thing for you all to think about. Whether Lorenzo, Ross, were there other questions for Ross in terms of what he's doing?
Well, I guess just globally, I'd just love to, do you feel like it's being well? I mean, I guess it just launched today, but what's the initial impression? Are you getting any feedback?
Well, I haven't. Yeah, we just launched today, and the only feedback I'm getting from is the village, and they love it. So,
well, but it sounds like what we heard announced today about Google Analytics, that may be interesting, because all those different businesses, if you wanted, you'd be able to know how many times people looked at it, how long they looked at that particular digital asset.
Yeah, you'll be able to tell which markers people are actually clicking on. So
yeah, and we're going to use that when we sell this to the merchants. You'll be able to see the analytics, and
yeah,
we're going to be using that as a selling tool.
Good.
I do have a request though too, and I sent this in, and I'm assuming it's just something that I don't even know if it can be done, but I mistakenly deleted this tour about a week ago, which wasn't too big of a deal because I hadn't had that much on there yet. But so I was able to just recreate it. But you don't have any kind of a backup where you can, if somebody makes a mistake like that, like I did, and deleted the wrong tour, the wrong panorama, you don't have a way to recover that.
We do have backups, certainly, and they happen on a regular basis. But I think because Lorenzo and I talked about this a little bit. There's kind of two challenges. One is we have we put an alert up that says, hey, are you sure you want to delete this? And then at that point, if you do delete it, it does. So there's there's this mini fail safe in front of it saying like, hey, are you sure? And then beyond that, if something, our backups are really meant for like a catastrophe situation where we can go back 24 hours or a week or whatever to restore the system. But it's a sort of an undelete is challenging. I'm hoping I'm describing this well enough to understand that issue of,
it's an oops button.
Yeah. But if you if you stored an oops button for everything, we would never have any, it would grow and grow and grow. So trying to determine when you actually would save, and do you have a better way of describing that, Lorenzo?
I don't know about a better way to describe it. We do, I can say this, what we do have is we have a data export and import, which will allow you to pull a CSV describing all of the tours that you've made. Now that doesn't specifically, it doesn't allow you to pull out the images that you've made. So you'd have some extra work in trying to restore something that you've deleted, and that you would have to go reassociate the image with it and things like that. We do nightly backups. So in the event that there was, if you really had a problem where you had spent, 200 hours. I remember specifically your case. You're like, well, I only spent a few hours. It'll be, a pain in the rear, but I can recover this. If it was something that was, grandiose, and for whatever reason your intern or something goes on there and destroys it, we could actually restore that. But it's just not a simple task at this point, and we haven't gotten a tremendous number of requests to do that sort of thing. So there's not a lot of initiative on our part to go in and create that system. And then of course, there's a lot of technical reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. If you just think about it, if you say like, okay, well, you can delete stuff, but nothing is ever actually deleted, you start to accumulate a real large, massive data very quickly, especially with images and stuff. And then in turn, we have to back all of that stuff up too. Which
could I make a suggestion, which I think would solve Ross's question and maybe not overwhelm you all, which is, the oops button only works at the tour level. It's not an individual digital asset. It's a tour. and that maybe gives you either 24 hours or 7 days to restore back to what you had, or to return it back.
I think in a short period of time, like a week. That's what
I could see that if you have a lot of tours and you accidentally delete the wrong tour, which I think we heard Ross do, had you given him an opportunity for a day or 2 days or a week, that perhaps wouldn't overburden you from having to store it forever in a day. And we're not talking about storing the oops button for every digital asset, because you delete one digital asset, that's not the pain factor of I've deleted the entire tour by accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
All right, let's raise your hands if you want this feature, Ross. All right, 50% of those on the screen.
Right.
100% of your customers.
Yeah.
And
Well, just know that we know whenever a feature request comes in, we do make note and we do pay attention, and it's on the list. If we started building every single thing that everybody said, we'd just spiral. So we pay attention and we listen and we see it go, geez, that sounds a little bit like what this person was saying. That sounds a little bit like that. What if this was that? And so it hasn't fallen on deaf ears, Ross, that's for sure. We're paying attention, and we'll see if there isn't something we can come up with in a future release.
I like it.
Yeah.
An oops button for tour level.
All
right, maybe I'll submit that one too, Ross, and we'll just keep loading up the queue or something. We'll lobby the queue or whatever. Ross, just outside of Chicago, again, talk. What other questions? I mean, you got the developers here. These are the two people that developed what you are using to build a business. And in your mind, you're not just doing one historic district. You have a vision for doing this in many places. First, have a success in one place, and then take that success and do it elsewhere. What power features would you want that would help you succeed faster with your business plan, with your vision?
I don't think there's anything that I can think of with 360 tours that I could, make it faster for me. It's a pretty slick platform, and it's pretty easy to add assets. It's pretty simple to add new icons, and just organizing of them is important to me. It's going to be important. Right now, it's not a big deal because it's the main one I'm working on.
All right. Sure. Well, I think this is good. I mean, that's a power user feature to say I'm creating, not dozens, but hundreds, if not thousands of digital stuff that I need to keep organized.
No, it's great feedback, and that's something that we'll definitely prioritize on the list, because I can see the need for that, especially as your business grows. Because we want to make it as one of the goals of 360 Tours is to make it as quick and painless to put a tour together and to link all of your digital assets together in one place. And to scroll through hundreds of icons. I've had to do that on projects, and it's not fun.
The way I'm keeping each individual business or now the government offices or properties together is I'm creating a the WP 3D model for each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And just linking that's what's linked to their little icon on the panorama.
That's great, because then you're getting the traffic for that too. Yeah.
Right. So it's all the assets are put together there. There's a little blurb, that's what each one is linked to.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
I forgive me, but the promotion person in me just has to say, and Ross, you get the free use of WP 3D Models WordPress plugin as a standard member. So
exactly.
Yeah. Thank you for taking advantage of the membership benefits.
It's a free business, it's all free.
It's all free. Yeah, it's fantastic.
You guys, I apologize. I think Lorenzo and I both have something we have to be at here in about 5 minutes. So we just wanted to make sure there's nothing else we could help you with before.
Sounds great. Ross, thank you. Lorenzo, thank you. Ross, thank you. And thank you all for tuning in to WGAN-TV Live at 5. If you've missed any portion of today's show, we have recorded it, and we'll put it in the We Get Around Network forum by Monday. Thanks all. Good to see you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ross.
Good.
Thanks for joining us.
Hey, do one quick thumbs up. Everybody thumbs up. We got to get a thumb. Rod, got to smile. Smile.
Wow.
Okay, good. Thank you all. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.